Hello, good morning, JJ. Now, before you respond, for the sake of everyone who doesn't know you, this is an incredible woman that I had the pleasure of meeting when my second book came out. And it's a great privilege because she interviewed me. I think she was one of the first podcasts I was on. So it's very nice to welcome you, JJ, and have you with us.
I'm excited about our conversation, Catherine. Thank you for having me. And congratulations.
So, JJ, I want to ask you a question, and I want to keep it really simple because I'm very clear about what the magic that you put out in the world. And it's very grounded magic. And I call it magic because I think it's the real missing link of what happens when people have dis-ease. So I would like you to tell us what you do. And then at the end of this, I'm going to make sure that everyone can get a hold of you.
Okay. So the question is just what I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just you're a stranger to the people that will listen to this. And the best person that can talk about what you do is you rather than me.
Absolutely. Okay. I'll do a little short bullet point to catch people up to the whole like beginning piece, and then I'll move into where I am now. Always grew up sort of I'm a Pisces astrologically, Western astrology. So therefore I'm very emotional. I'm very intuitive. I'm very expressive. I've been performing most of my life. I get a certain sense of, being seen and heard, and being able to be fully expressed by doing that. So a lot of really right brain stuff. And as I went through school, I didn't really think I was super smart left brain wise because I didn't excel at math and science easily like some other people did growing up. And so I just sort of made this decision and belief that I was talented, and I was in the arts, but I wasn't book smart because I didn't memorize, nor did I get science very quickly. And then once I got out of school and I went to college and I did musical theater, and I did a lot of English. So I loved poetry and I read books, and I've written 4 books. I'm on my 4th book. Sorry. I've written 3 books. And so there was this part of me that just sort of had this identity. And then after college, I wanted to do something in the world that wasn't waiting tables or temping while I was auditioning and doing things. And so I went into the gym one day and I saw the personal trainers, and I thought, well, I want to do that because I cared about my body. I always exercised. I was in dance classes. Of course, all of us, unfortunately, have been dieting since we were consider body image. So whether that's 7, 8, or 9. So I really cared about how I looked. I cared about how I felt, and I wanted to become a trainer. So as I went down the sciences of becoming a personal trainer, it sort of unlocked a piece of my left brain where I could see mechanically science. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. I understand this. I'm actually smart. So then that sort of led me down science path, and I've been sort of on the science path ever since, but in a physical science way. So when I was a personal trainer and I started my own company, and I was still sort of juggling both acting and personal training. And then, my agent would call with an audition and I wouldn't be able to go. And so it just sort of led into, I was really dedicated and felt really smart. Like it really increased my confidence to understand that I understood science and I could see it more mechanically. And I was so into my personal training, into my business, start a business. When people would come to me with pain, joint pain, back pain, I had enough of the basic sciences to sort of figure out if something was imbalanced or something was chemically off or something was, out of balance in sort of muscularly, how to fix that, whether it be through the chiropractor, through muscle balancing, I'm an excellent biomechanist. Biomechanics is a very underlooked science. Most people like kinesiology, which is sort of a stupid science in my opinion, because it's what the body does when it's lying down with no gravity. Well, we never need to move while we're lying down with no gravity, really. Like there's always gravity in our lives. So biomechanics became my big thing. So I used to work with a lot of people and get referred to and became a specialist with people with injuries. And I started to notice a pattern of the people with injuries. And again, I could work out any 10 injuries, no problem. I could work you out, give you a good workout, even rehab you. Not necessarily always back to whole, but I could definitely make big improvements. I became queen of being able to fix knees, right? Men with bad knees. And then then all of a sudden they wouldn't have any knee pain anymore, or even back pain for some people. I had one client who had very, very severe back pain. And I had remembered a friend of mine in the entertainment industry who came to stay with me in California when I first moved from New York City. And he had some severe back pain. It kept him in California longer than he expected. And I followed his journey, and he worked with Dr. John Sarno. And Dr. John Sarno, for anyone who doesn't know, wrote the book Healing Back Pain. And and more. He's got Mind Body Prescription, and I think he's got 3 books. Anyway, he's now no longer with us in this physical realm, but his books are. And at the time he was still alive. And that friend of mine read the book. He had, the way the book reads in the beginning is sort of that it's mental and emotional. And someone with a lot of pain goes, no, this is not in my head. Like, I have pain. And so they end up rejecting the book very quickly because they think that the book is saying it's all in your head. It's not what the book is saying. So it took this person 2 or 3 times. And he was on the way to surgery. Like a couple days before surgery, someone said to him, please just read the book before you go into surgery. And he read the book on a train from New York City to Connecticut. And when he got off the train and the book was done, 50% of his pain was gone. After that, he reached out to Dr. John Sarno, had a couple sessions, and never looked back, never had surgery, and used his pain as a barometer for understanding what was off or what emotionally he needed to process. So I use that application on a client that nothing physical was working. And that was sort of always how I worked. I worked physical first. And when physical wasn't working, I thought, okay, there's more to this. And I'm a great problem solver, and I'm an awesome learner. And so if I don't know something, I'm going to go learn it. So I asked all the right questions, and I went to find, well, what else could it be? Oh my gosh, well, it's emotional. So let's look at, quantum physics and epigenetics, and to me, how emotion is almost, I give emotion form. So if someone has anger, to me, it's almost like a puff of smoke, or it's a cloud. And if that anger gets repressed and we push it down, it takes up space in the body. It isn't air. It doesn't just come and go. It can, but most of us hold on to some negative emotions. And so that I would see that very physically, very mechanically in the body. So it wasn't a stretch for me to automatically know when we feel pain or when we feel toxic emotion that it gets stored in our bodies. So then my work kind of led more into wanting all of my personal training clients to do emotional work, which of course none of them did. So as I was learning all of that, and that's why I started my podcast, Fit to Love, back in 2014, and which led to then Spirit, Purpose, and Energy being my top show of all shows. And it just really led me down the emotional path. And again, this is something I was studying astrology when I was 21. I was always asking the question. Prior to going to college, I was asking the question, why do I feel this way? What happened? What did I think about? Why did I react that way? Why did that person say that this way? I've always been inquisitive of the reasons why we feel or react the way we do prior to ever going into any kind of, study about it. So fast forward, now I'm dealing with emotion, and I deal with the body a little bit, but I refer out to that mostly. I really want to dig, and I've refined what I'm doing in the world so much so. I have a couple key phrases that I'll throw out because it's kind of just so that we can go from there. So I after so many clients would hear me on the show and buy 2 sessions, and then after 2 sessions would claim their lives were different, and then everything had changed after 2 sessions, and they'd been in therapy for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And this happened so much that I thought, okay, I'm going to claim this. So I created a webinar called 3 Reasons Why Talk Therapy is Ineffective. And of course, I get a lot of crap and flack when I promote that from people who, of course, love their therapist, which I understand. And if you're someone who is working with someone and you love them and they've changed your life and your life looks very different and you don't react anymore the way you used to, good for you. This is not for you. I'm speaking to the people who've been to therapy multiple times for many, many years, yet still are surprised when they react the same way today than they did before they went to therapy. So there is something missing in that model. And from there, I created something called the Roadmap to Emotional Healing. And it was looking at the diagnostic piece of emotion. So like a doctor, you're going to come in, and doctor's not just going to throw medication or prescribe surgery to you, or for you, you're not just going to start needling somebody. You're going to look at them. You're going to evaluate them. You're going to try to find a root cause. You're going to try to find one pinpoint place that possibly caused everything that's going on, or at least some of the things that somebody is dealing with. Well, why is it with emotion we don't have those kinds of tools? Well, I found those kinds of tools and I've created those kinds of tools. So rather than just, hey, what happened yesterday? What's your problem? How about we go back diagnostically and look at where it started? Because everything we're living today is a result of something from a core wound in the past. Everything, unless it's a trauma, that either a core wound from your upbringing or some major trauma, from 0 to 20. But otherwise, why are we talking about what happened yesterday? Why are we talking about the second divorce, the third divorce, the fight with your parents? Why are we not looking back at the core wound that you have that's causing this whole interpretation in the first place? So I created this roadmap to start people on a path to individualize and understand why they would be creating an emotional plan for themselves and why. What is it that I'm trying to heal? And when will I know when it's different? What will that look like? So that, again, we have some clarity. And then from the roadmap, I've taken people through 3 and 6 month small coaching groups, and I've now fine-tuned that core wound process down to a rewiring your core wound patterns. This is the perfect intersection of my personal training world and the emotional world, because it's not just about, for me as a Sag moon, when I understand something, it can stop me in my tracks and my behavior will change immediately. Well, that's not everybody. Some people can know something and know something and know something. And like Virgo moons, you guys can know something for a long time and never change anything. Like you'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And you'll change nothing. So it really depends on how you interpret and take that information in. So now I'm taking these core wound patterns and I'm helping people rewire the brain through neuroplasticity, through making sure that we push through with precision about why we're doing the hard things. Because again, without cellular involvement on a more intense level, again, these ideas are nice, but unless you're living it or integrating into your body, into your brain in a more intense way, then we're going to continue repeating patterns. So that is where I am. And I'm writing my 4th book right now called The Roadmap to Emotional Healing, How to Rewire Your Core Wound Patterns and Evolve Beyond Your Story. Now that may change because as my story keeps evolving, as I'm writing this book, I'm like, oh, this may change. So that's what I have right now.
Just for a second, I'm going to take this in and let whoever's listening to this take it in, because my experience is that what you've said is so crucial from 40 years of clinical experience. My training is to get to the roots. And if it's not, we can immediately diagnose, is it spiritual? Is it emotional? Is it actually physical? So, there are so many, I was kind of writing notes, because the thing that's really struck in my mind is I'm also one of those people that if I get what it is that I'm doing that's creating havoc in my life, I just instantly, it's gone, I've changed. So it took me a long time in clinical practice to understand that not everyone does that. I don't mean this at all rudely. I've definitely got a caricaturist in my mind. It's like a kind of little hedgehog that, kind of keeps going round the garden, even though they know that the food is running out or whatever it is. It's a silly metaphor, but I love the idea that, because I believe it, I don't just believe it to be true, I know that it's true, that when you find a practitioner like you in the world, you really can have just a couple of sessions or 6 months or whatever it is, and your life can fundamentally change. And I think that one of the things I'd love to touch on is how many people out there are not yet sick and tired of being sick and tired. Mm-hmm. And therefore they will not come near me and they won't come near you. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who are actually desperate to find you. So, or me, thank goodness there are different people out there who are, I personally believe that none of us really discover anything new. I think that everything is just it's like a huge library in the sky where the more you evolve and the more you wake up, you can just kind of go, whoa, this makes sense. Wow. And so I think you were one of the most exciting podcasts when I got that book out there that I did, because I listened to it sometimes and my voice was so excited I just couldn't slow up at all. It was really funny. But can you give us some, because I'm thinking about, it's all very well that I think I understand your work, but the point of the podcast I'm doing anyway is to really open people up to what is possible. So for instance, could you please, from your perspective, just give a couple of examples, like, bad knees or bad backs or...
Yes, I'll give you two very specific. Well, I'll start with the most recent one. Just finished up a rewire program. It was a 3-month that ended up extending into 5 months, because 3 months is a great start, but I don't think 3 months is enough time. And these are small group coaching programs, so they get a lot of time with me, and it's about the integration of the work. We use Marco Polo, which is an app, and that's why I don't even really work with people one-on-one anymore individually. I only do these small group programs because I want people that are really serious about the change. 1 or 2, and plus, when you do a small group, the learning and the healing that happens just by the structure of the group is something no one person can give anybody. There is something about showing up for yourself and being on camera and speaking to other people and getting to know them and being vulnerable and looking at yourself, and then reflecting back to, and then also feeling a part of a community, feeling a part of the world, like you're not alone and you're not the only person who feels this way. There's just, again, the whole structure of it in itself, without me, take me out of it, it is healing in itself. And then you put in the tools that we're using. So most recently I had actually a neighbor and a past client of Dr. Nasha. She's a 6-year cancer thriver. And she was having some relationship issues when she heard the podcast that I did about when your partner triggers you. And that was her in. She heard that podcast and said, okay, I'm going to do this program. So she started this program, and at the beginning of it, it starts out the way that most people who are in the fitness, health, healing arenas, it's physical. No, but JJ, the physical. And I had sent her, and I have all these tools that, depending on the person I have them, I send them different things to either listen to or to watch or whatever. And I had sent her an episode that Dr. Bruce Lipton and I did about biology of belief. And she had heard Bruce talk before, but she hadn't heard Bruce and I talk before. And so I really boiled down the epigenetic piece, and there was something about listening to that. And then I'd had a private conversation with her on a one-on-one where I said something. Dr. Mindy Pelz had me on her show. And sometimes I get into momentum. I get excited, right? And we're like, oh, we're talking about this thing. And like you and I having this conversation about patients or about, people. And about our frustrations, about what we see as the truth. And sometimes we say things, well, when it's together and it's just you and I, it doesn't matter what we say. But when you're saying it publicly, you have to kind of reevaluate that it's still going to piss somebody off. So I'm with Mindy and she's interviewing me, and I say something that after the fact, I go, oh, I walked away. I felt really good about the interview. And then I went, oh my God, she can't publish that. She has to cut that out. People are going to hear that and hate me. They are not going to receive that the way that I mean it. And so I asked her to cut that piece out. Well, I told this client what that piece was, and it was about cancer patients. And I wasn't telling it to her to nail her. I was just sharing. Okay. But she internalized it that day, and it triggered her. It triggered her so much that then she looked at this feelings chart that I have, like the vibrational set point of different feelings and where they are on the scale. And she was in the bath, and she was agitated with me and with this idea. And then she started to go back in her brain and think, okay, let me go back to when I think this cancer started, or what were the events leading up to it? And what was my life like before that? And she looked at this feelings piece of paper and saw that, oh yeah, she was in jealousy. Oh yeah, she was in resentment. Oh yeah, she was in frustration. Like she was living in those negative places. So now all of a sudden she's getting this. And prior to this, she could not get her A1C to move. She's working with a naturopath. She's been between fasting and between her diet changes and between, different supplements and watching her blood sugar. She has tried for months and months and months and months, maybe even years, to get her blood sugar to change, and it wouldn't budge. after this time in the bath and this realization and recognition of like, oh my gosh, I was holding all those negative emotions for all those years. Oh my God, I get it. After that emotional release and realization, her blood sugar dropped. She was not able to get it to move forever. And all of a sudden, with no change in diet, with no change in supplementation, and since then, her blood sugar has improved. So, and she went back to her naturopath, who also agreed that, emotions obviously can affect, of course, because stress lowers our immune system. Stress affects all of everything in our body. And if we're holding any negative emotion, that's considered a stress, even though you may not think it's an alive in your face thing you have to deal with. So that to her was mind blowing and life changing, because before that she was on the protocol. What do I have to eat? Exercise, diet, supplements, sleep, let me test everything. Let me look at well, that protocol in itself is stressful. That whole giving your power away, thinking that the only thing that's going to change you is physical. It's not. And so she's kind of since then let herself off the hook, but anyway. And so she's out like beyond herself right now with how much change happened in 3 months. Cause at that point we hadn't extended yet. So on the physical side, I've seen physical changes happen with people where doctors will, where they're trying all the other things. They're trying all the physical things and it's not working. Another client in that same group, she had some mold and she is very well read. She is on top of all of the data. She is on top of all the things, and and it wouldn't really move too much. She did add one thing, but literally, and her whole life has changed in the last 3 months. And then she retested and she's kind of in the normal range now, which she hasn't been for years. And of course she doesn't want to give it to the emotional piece. She wants like, oh, well, I did this one thing. I'm like, yep. You did some glutathione, and your nervous system has come down at least 3 notches from when we met you. Like your control thing is not there. And I'll give you one more quick story. This isn't about physical stuff. In the last time I tried this 3-month group last year, I had a man in it, and he was also in therapy at the time in the beginning, and he had a session with his therapist and was way in the beginning of our group. And he said, oh, I just came from my therapist and we were talking about my anger towards my dad. And I said, stop. I go, what? And he gave me his story. And I'm not going to repeat what his story was, but basically, because I used a lot of tools and I dissected that story. And I said, here's what I'm hearing you say, but it's not true. And here's how I know it's not true. Let me give you a different perspective. And I use some of the tools that I use to reframe this story. And in one conversation, he went from 30 years of pain, which caused him addiction and violent breakouts and really, really scary bad behavior, all from the story that he thought was correct. And when I flipped that story around and he could see it after I explained it, he was like, oh my God. He now looked back at his entire life, and instead of seeing pain, he saw love. He rewrote his entire history by changing the story. And he's like, is this how simple it can be? I'm like, because the pain you're carrying is an interpretation of a story that's probably wrong.
Yeah. You know what I love about all of this, JJ, is I've studied a lot of the religions all over the world, and at their core, every single one of them is saying what you and I are talking about. I mean, I love the idea that, in the Egyptian times, they had, you probably might know more about this than I do, but they had tunnels that people who were in pain would go through, and there was a sort of chanting going through the tunnels, and when they arrived the other side, they would be healed. So, very often people come to me now and they go, I've got a diagnosis or prognosis and I haven't got long to live or whatever it is. And I go, well, and I never know whether they have a belief or not, but I go, well, have your doctors and your medical teams talk to God? And they always laugh. They go, oh, well, no, they haven't. And I go, well, then unless God is calling you or whatever you believe in, that's more powerful than us right now, then let's get negotiating, because from now till when you're called or when it's your time, all that's going on is your body is trying to ask for help. So let's uncover what on earth is going on. And the body, what I love is on a mind, body, and spirit level, the body is always saying, Mummy, please, Mummy, Daddy, please help me. And your physical, if there's the way that we were trained is the spiritual is your most powerful, and it's your essence, and then your emotional, mental is sort of second, and then your physical is last. So if you want to impact your physical and you want to do it fast, go straight to the emotional, spiritual.
Yes.
Which is what you're saying. So you're like when I think of you, I always think that even though we've only had a couple of conversations, I always think that you're out in the world and you're an exquisite sort of emotional surgeon, you know, and you get hold of the splinters and you go, hey, no wonder you're feeling like whatever word we can use on a podcast. So yeah, I'm always amazed that the Western medical system is so devoid of any understanding of the emotional impact. And I love the word emotion. So if your emotional states aren't moving, or if they're getting stuck on a record of, you know, whatever it is, my husband is abandoning, my husband's abandoning me. No, has he left you? Well, no, he hasn't. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, well, why is he still there if he doesn't love you? And apparently he's abandoned you. And I said, what about maybe, I don't think you have, but I'm being controversial deliberately now. What about your cancer has made him feel abandoned? And she went, what? I mean, it just simply literally hadn't occurred to her. I mean, bless. Yeah. And if you're somebody that's on a journey like you and I are, you can say those things, because it's not like you're in a morally superior place. You know, you're evolving and you're kind of giving people the possibility of discovering what they can unravel for themselves. And then, as it says behind you, anything is possible.
It really is. And that story reminded me of a client when I was personal training. I learned, well, we all learn, but I learned things the hard way, I guess. Well, this wasn't hard for me. It was a client whose son was paying me to go train her. She was morbidly obese, didn't really move very much. And she was on disability and she wasn't working, but she bought a Pilates machine. I was always a negotiation of what she would do, right? It was like, okay, what can you do? And then what will you do? Like, what will you commit to? Right. And I think I'm a great problem solver. I'm a great problem solver. So if you don't like this way, great. We'll go over here and try this way. You don't like this way? We'll go over here and try this way. You don't like this way? I'll go over here and try this way. Like I will tire out every possibility of what you could do until I do all of that. And I realized one day, oh, she's not changing, because what she doesn't understand is her pain and her situation gets her love. Her husband takes care of her hand on foot. Her son pays for lots of things for her and gives her a ton of attention. And if she gets better, who will she be? This pain and disease that she has is keeping everybody close. And if she gets better, her husband won't need to watch over her and wait on her hand and foot. Her son won't need to show up and take care of her. And I knew that was a concept she would never understand nor agree to, because it was subconscious, but it was absolutely 100% what she was doing. I saw it. She loved the attention that she got. She was never giving that up by getting better. Never. She did not have enough pain. She was slightly uncomfortable, but she actually was she would say she was uncomfortable physically, but emotionally, she was exactly where she wanted to be. So I think that depending on the level of consciousness of someone who's listening to this or someone who meets us, obviously someone like that, I mean, that would not be someone who would even look at me twice now. And that would not be someone I would ever, of course, be attracted to work with either now, not because of any of her situation, but because to me, I have conversations. I mean, most of my programs now are application only because I need to know if you're on this journey. I've had people, when I did the Rewire beta, I had the most applications I've ever had. And I had people that wanted to do it. And I said, have you done work on yourself before? And they said, no. I said, this is not the place to start. Because and do you listen to my show? No. Well, then you can't work with it. You can't work with me here. I can start you somewhere else. But this is a very vulnerable, you have to trust me, because I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you out of your comfort zone. And if you don't trust me and you don't understand what we're doing, you're going to think I'm just being a brat, or that I'm being mean, or that you're going to interpret in some way. So, but I need to understand that you're ready for the journey that you're on, because without it, there's not going to be change. So I'll start you here. I've, at this point, over 1,000 free episodes that you can listen to or watch. Start there. And then when you're ready, come back. But I turn people away because I want to discern that I'm not wasting anybody's time. They're not wasting mine, and that they're really ready for the work that we're going to do, because it is a lot of my time and a lot of my attention. And that's, again, going back to the roadmap idea. It's like, okay, where are you on your roadmap to emotional healing? Because we're all in different places. So from understanding where you are determines, to me, what choices you make next. It also, just like exercise, I love to tell the story of, I remember as a trainer, I'd have people tell me, oh my God, Pilates. They'd go to Pilates because someone else they knew lost a lot of weight on Pilates. So they'd go, like say a normally fit person who wanted to lose maybe 10 pounds, 15 pounds. And they'd go and they'd say, well, it feels stronger, but I'm not losing any weight. I'm like, well, Pilates isn't designed as a weight loss tool. Pilates is for structure and for core work, and for sometimes some flexibility and things. But it's not designed for, so why would you go to Pilates if you want to lose weight? Like, you don't understand the components of what you're asking for. So you're going to be disappointed, because you're going to blame this thing that was supposed to do the things that it never was meant to do. And because you're expecting these results. And I feel like that's the same way with emotional work. Someone will go to Reiki, or someone will go to a therapist, or someone will go to a healer. And you just assume that they will clean the slate of all of your problems. You have no idea what you're even expecting when you go in. And when it doesn't happen, you think, well, that didn't work. So to me, it's almost the same as in the medical. Like, what's going on with you? And what is it that you're expecting this person to help you with? And when are you going to know when it's different? What results do you expect to get? And is this thing you've chosen the right choice to get you the results that you want? So to me, it's taking the emotional work and that's why I titled myself an empowerment strategist, because it is both sides of the brain. We're dealing with the emotional piece, which is very right brain, but we have to have a structure around that. We have to understand it in some kind of analytical way, in some kind of perspective. We have to understand how it works and why it works or why it doesn't work. Otherwise, you're just going to be continually frustrated that you keep trying things and you don't get where you want to go.
And I think my sentence, which I think is probably very annoying to a lot of people, is, it gives me personally a lot of comfort. I am always the problem, and therefore I'm always the solution. And I think that, to really live our lives with incredible passion. When you speak, JJ, you are so lined up with passion and integration. And yet, most of us, if we just listen to the tone of our voices, we're sort of drippy. We're just not really engaged, and I can tell from one moment to the next whether I'm engaged with life or not. And if I'm not, it doesn't matter what has happened outside. It's me that's the problem. And I love talking about that to other people, because, exactly what you're saying. I will see people. I personally won't work with them, as you're saying, but I will see people in everyday life who build, and I'm not judging them. I'm just assessing it and seeing it. I see people building their identity around having my arthritis, my whatever it is. Well, you know, if you're beginning to understand, and JJ, I think you'll love this, my father, the older I get, the more I realize that my father had this all down to, I mean, he never talked about it, he'd just get on with it. But he used to say lovely things to us, like he said, listen, there is an angel either side of your mouth, and they are going to help you create life. And if you're not careful and you put them off duty, you will destroy your lives, the privilege of living. And, you know, just waking up in the morning is already, you're a lottery winner. You don't have to go and buy the flipping ticket. You're already there. So no matter what flipping issues you have, you know, I mean, you know, because you kindly read my book, you know, my thing is, let's start off with what's right with you. And the fact that you're resentful and angry and bitter and twisted is a great place to start. Okay, now let's move it on. Let's change it. Or do you want to just stay there in this stagnant puddle? I can't, you know, as a kid, and in fact, I have to admit, as an adult, I like having Wellington boots and jumping in the puddles, you know, but I don't want to jump in stagnant puddles. And if I'm in the, you know, stagnant puddle, I want to shift it. And I think that's where yours and my work is kind of similar. Because if people want to shift what is really going on, I mean, one of the things that I'm always saying to people is, why should your body allow any of this stuff to work? And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how much you've paid. It doesn't matter how diligently you've done it. It doesn't matter how long you've been on the protocol. Why the hell should it work if the real issue is still not being heard or listened to? Why? Why should it work? Don't come to me. If you're not willing to, I don't know whether you have them, JJ, in America, but I always say put the marigolds on, you know, the plastic gloves when you do the washing up. Because, you know, it's like, be prepared to be really uncomfortable. I've just worked with a really lovely, lovely person. She said she used to get on Zoom and she used to say, I'm determined, you're not going to break me. And I go, I don't think I'm breaking you. Yes, you are, but I'm willing, but I'm not, you know. She was so lovely. And she, my God, she did the work. She absolutely did the work. And then when various things are happening, with her medical team, she's being so ballsy. She's not being intimidated or bullied by the markers or the this or the that. She's fully in charge. Mm-hmm. And the proof of the pudding was one of her closest friends said to her, you're back. I haven't seen you for years. I've seen you, but you weren't at home. You weren't there. And yours and my job is going, hello, where are you? For goodness sake, where are you? If you died tomorrow, are you pleased with your life? No, not really. Well, come on then. You and I both know people who would beg, literally would beg to be with their children for another 2 weeks, and they didn't get the chance. So, you know, this is not a flipping dress rehearsal. Right. And the older I get, the more, I don't know what word to use on a podcast, but the more stroppy I get. You know, it's like, no, I don't want to work with you. I don't care how much you're going to give me. You know, I've only got a certain amount of energy and I need to look after it.
Right. You're not willing to negotiate it anymore or prostitute yourself for people that can't hear you or can't receive it.
Yeah. If you're not ready, you're not ready. I mean, the truth is, and I want to be clear about this for people that are listening, you know, there are many, many reasons why we are not ready. So, you know, get off your back. Do not give yourself a hard time that you might not be ready yet. But if you begin to be willing, that's already a shift in the right direction. Because somewhere inside you, I know that there's what I call a wriggly worm going, Can life be different? Yeah. JJ and I here, we're two people saying, yes, it can be really juicy. You can actually create the life that you want. And yes, you might still have a disabled child. Yes, there are many, many realities that are absolutely heartbreaking. But within that, masses is possible. Anything is possible for your attitude. I mean, JJ knows, and some people who listen to this, I don't even like this word. I've had to have a lot of surgeries, but the reason why I keep living and thriving and absolutely thriving is because of exactly what JJ and I are talking about. So anything is possible within ourselves. And then, my goodness, whatever it is you also have to live with, that maybe you can't control, maybe you can't change, can actually suddenly be manageable. I mean, it can't get better than that.
Can I add to the, maybe you're not ready, if you change the question to what am I ready for?
Yeah.
What would I be ready to do? What would I be willing to do? Maybe you're not ready to do sort of the hardest stuff, but maybe you're willing to do one thing, and just being able to sort of inch towards it. I have a client right now who's in my current three-month group, and she came to me from somebody else's podcast she heard me on. And I remember when she signed up for the first, this was like over a year ago, 3-month beta that I was trying, she applied, and I talked with her, and I said, are you interested? And she's like, oh, I can't afford that. I can't do that. I said, okay. And I said, well, I'm having a live event, which was less than this 3-month. And I was like, why don't you come to that? Oh, no, I can't afford that either. I said, okay. So then she joined my membership and she became a case study. And she did buy my roadmap to emotional healing, and she worked with some of my trainers. And it's been a year, and 2 months ago, she applied again and said, okay, I'm ready now. She goes, my life is very different than it was a year ago, and I'm much happier. And I've just taken all of the information that you have, the free stuff, the membership that you have, and now I'm ready for the bigger leap. Even though she's paying a lot more now than she could have a couple months ago, but people are ready when they're ready. And she knew it. She didn't ask me for a discount or anything. She said, no, I know I missed it, but I'm ready now. And I have no scarcity, and I know it's time, because I've been slowly building to this. Like, I feel better. I feel more resilient. I'm ready to take the deeper dive, and I'm ready to remove these emotional blocks that are preventing me from more. But she was happier. So she took her, we take our time to, but she was doing things. She was listening to my show. She was in my Empower You and coming to meetings. She was, reading the books I recommend, whatever. So she's doing the stuff. So as long as you feel like I think the story that people get caught in is, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be really hard. But then I go, but isn't what you're living hard? Isn't the situation you're uncomfortable with not good for you? So this is just a different hard, but it's actually gives you relief on the other end. Like, life gets easier. You're happier. You're more joyful. You're more grounded. You're less stressed. You sleep better. You have less anxiety. You're not depressed anymore. Like, all of the gold on the other side of this kind of hard is amazing. It's all the things that you want. But by not doing anything, you stay in the hard you don't like.
And also, I think there is a slight, it interests me that my book is selling in America and it's not selling in England. It's like English people do not like to admit that they're in pain. They don't want a book around that says pain, But the thing that sort of, in a way, fascinates me, and we'll sort of close in a way here, is your self-worth and your value. So let me back up. We will have, in England anyway, we will have a car, okay, and we will have to have an MOT, and we have to put petrol in it and oil regularly and a water change or whatever it is. But we will not invest in our bodies. And that car is not what you sleep with day in, day out. You sleep with yourself. And yet those of us, even those people who have money, I work with a lot of people who have a hell of a lot of money, and they have everything going for them, but they will not invest in their own well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being. And I'm not judging that, but they're miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you begin to have a sense of your own value and self-worth, then I guess one of the things that I would like to recommend is at the end of this particular podcast, all JJ's information will be there. So I'm going to absolutely recommend that you start listening to JJ's podcasts, because they're utterly brilliant and really inspiring. But I would like to just put it out there. Please, will you ask yourself, what are you doing with investing in yourself? Because if you want a different life, you can actually have it, but you do have to start investing. And I'm not even talking about vast sums of money. You need to be willing to invest 10 minutes every single day, for instance, listening to all the free stuff. So if you're listening to yourself and you're saying, I can't afford the time, I can't afford the money, I can't, then guess what? What you say, you've just created. You can't afford it. So that's my challenge for this podcast. Is there anything that you would like to wrap this up with, to do with our self-worth and investing? Time-wise, money-wise.
Yeah, I got a bunch of podcasts on that. So, and
well, there, okay.
Yeah, yes, yes, a lot of podcasts on that particular subject, because it's kind of, it's how my business has grown since rebranding and kind of creating new shows from Fit to Love, the first one being Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, because people would come and say, oh my God, this is changing my life. Do you have more? And then from there, it was, okay, what do I have? What can I create for them? I don't have anything to sell anybody yet. I don't know where this is going. And then it just sort of evolved based on, what do you need and what do I have to give to you? And it's also based on my growth, because I don't do the same thing over and over again. I keep growing. So if I have people that have been listening for 7 years. I just did a show called, it was the 400th episode. And I have people who've been listening for 6-7 years. And one of the questions I asked was, why do you stay? And it's because of my growth, because they see me grow and then they grow with me. They're maybe not growing at the same pace, but it's not just I'm not saying the same thing over and over again. Like, it's new things. It's new. Like, I recently I think you and I talked about this. I interviewed Naisha, but before interviewing Naisha a year ago, we really talked about the therapeutic use of psychedelics. I've never, ever been a recreational drug user, and I don't smoke pot. I don't, yes, I drink. I actually have my own wine label now. You don't think you know that. Or maybe you do. I started my own wine label.
Yes, you told me about it.
Yes,
How fantastic.
Right.
Wow. Good.
Yes. High vibrational wines. And, but before the wine, let's say wine, but I've never smoked. I've never done any kind of drugs, growing up. And so the whole idea of psychedelics was, I'm like, well, why would I need it? And then when Naisha sort of explained to me the benefit for cancer patients that would face death and that would lose their fear of death through having a journey, and then would outlive their diagnosis because all of a sudden now their emotional state had completely changed, I saw the value in that. I'm like, well, let me learn about it. So for the past 1.5 years, I've been learning about it. I've been experimenting. I've been helping facilitate. And, and that's me growing into learning something new. Like, I didn't want to start my book a year ago. There was resistance in me to do it. And I thought, and there was more than one reason why that was not the right time, but I always check in with, is it the time? And it was like, nope. And then when I heard the psychedelic thing, I'm like, oh, that's because I don't know anything about this. Well, I need to go learn about this. I need to understand what my opinion is and what I think about this before I can write a book about processing emotions, because people are using this to have emotional breakthroughs. And then after that happened, I'm like, okay, am I ready? And I still wasn't ready yet. I'm like, why am I not ready now? And then on my last 6-month group into a 3-month, it was because of this rewiring your core wound patterns. It was the next level of depth to the specificity of how we create neuroplasticity in the brain to literally rewire a core wound pattern. And I was like, okay, now I can write the book, because now I've tested this out, because I had to keep going deeper and deeper with this work in creating like a faster, more specific, easy to understand, easy to see, something you could take with you. So you'll never ask. No one who works with me will ever ask, why did I react that way? Why does that bother me? How come I keep repeating that? You will never ask that, because you know exactly why. You have a core wound map that we've created, and you know exactly what triggers and why and what happens next and the patterns. So
So
Yeah.
you're in charge. That's what's so amazing.
Right. And it's also the value of being able to say, here's your scan, or here's the problem, and let me outline it for you. And then you get to take it and decide what to do with it. And you get to decide if you want to work on it, you don't want to work on it, you want to keep going with it, you don't, you want to do this thing to help this. So it's very, yeah. Anyway, so my podcast has a lot of things about self-worth. To me, money is energy. And if you're willing to spend, like you said, money on your car, money on your house, money on clothes, money on a vacation, it doesn't change how you experience any of these things. Then, we have to be there. And that's why, for me, I have free stuff. I've got some online courses that you can do on your own, DIY, and then you jump into like the deep work with me, which gets to be pricey. But that's because taking that first leap is also the first healing. The first healing is feeling your value. You're not spending it on me. You're investing it in you. And if you're not willing to invest that into you, game over. Like, where are you going to, so then you're just saying to the universe, I'm not worth that. My life, my happiness is not worth that. What is your happiness worth?
But also, JJ, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about this kind of thing. So I want to just have you got a few more minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I want to tell a story. When I took 9.5 years to qualify, and I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me, but I literally did extra jobs. I sold fantastic antique furniture. My father had left me. I did everything to just pay for the training. I was determined to do it. And I had to do it for many more years than the average person because it doesn't really matter. Okay. But it was 9.5 years of finding the money to train. Okay. It's really important to just take that on board just for a second. And then I was very privileged. I took off like Concorde. I had a 6-week waiting list in 2 different clinics, and I never, ever had to even look for a new patient. They were just queuing up. It's huge privilege and honor. Okay. Now, there was a point when I had one clinic where we had 16 other practitioners, and a young woman came in, and the practice manager let her in, and she had done a 3-month massage course. Okay. And she asked to see me. So I said, lovely, I'll come see you. And she said, I think it's absolutely outrageous that you charge so much and that I'm not allowed to. So I said, okay, right. Well, firstly, if you really, you can charge whatever you want to charge. But I think you think that a 3-month training is equal to my 9 months. And I think that you think you're entirely equal to the medical training that I've had. I said, can you stop a stroke? And she said, no. And I said, can you diagnose heart failure? No. Anyway, I asked her about 10 different questions, and she said, no. And I said, hold on. One of the reasons why people pay me so much money, actually on a practical level, is because I've put so much investment behind what it is that I now give other people. I'm highly qualified, and it costs a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So hold on a second. And if you've got the balls to think that you have something that is absolutely remarkable, fantastic. You go and charge whatever you want to, but don't try and compete with me and compare 3 months with 9 years. It's not okay. So I think that one of the misunderstandings that I find all the time, I mean, the truth is if a refugee, which I've done often, comes in here and wants my help and absolutely cannot afford whatever it is I charge, I will do whatever I can That is a truth. But if someone can afford to invest in what I have already invested in, then we're a match. So this kind of horrible shaming and bullying that goes on and goes, oh, JJ, you're really expensive. I can do this much cheaper. And I go, okay, go and do it much cheaper. You're not going to get the same results.
Right.
What is this? So it's like I like to name this because it's the elephant in the room that is so full of, sorry guys, bullshit. It is.
Well, it's a self-worth issue, and that's where I don't really play. I've gone from doing individual sessions and working with people individually and doing packages and sort of creeping up the price, so to speak, because I give a lot. And it's also, I'll tell you, at the price point that I'm at right now for all the programs that I do, people get results. Why? Because they're willing to do the work. Like, the money gives the seriousness. It's there's a lot of skin in the game, and it's this, I'm worth this. And so they come, already in this program, we're not even a month in, or barely a month in. We're 3 weeks into this current Rewire program. And somebody who's so deathly afraid to look in the camera has already taken 1 or 2 tools, and anxiety has decreased by 50%. She's more calm. She is happier. She's right. And she's been great. Like, leading up to the course, she's like, oh my God, I've been living in this panic for months. And now, just in general, she lives in panic all the time. She's got a disabled child. She's got like all these things going on. And now, just with a couple tools in 3 weeks, she's like 50% better. So, and again, there's a lot more to do. We barely just got started, but again, some of these very easy, simple things, and then going to be a part of this group was an investment, but that levels up the people that are serious and ready.
No, I get it. But I don't think there's enough emphasis on, if you're going to just talk straight money and investment, what is never talked about is literally just in pounds or dollars, how much money has it cost you, JJ, to get to where you are right now?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, it's a value thing, but I think
it's an experience thing.
Yes. And it's like, I don't go to a surgeon who's going to operate on my spine who is not highly, highly disciplined and qualified. And it has cost them a fortune. So I had this conversation the other day with someone, and they said, oh, people charge so much in Harley Street, it's a disgrace. And I said, do you know how much it costs to be in Harley Street? Do you know how much it costs to be insured, to be in Harley Street, and to have those qualifications, which don't, just because you get qualified yesterday, doesn't mean to say you don't have to keep on paying to keep up the quality. This person had not thought about any of it, none of it. And it was just a big, I don't know whether you have this expression, but it was a big chip on their shoulder. And I said, remove that chip. Because if you go in with that chip to that Harley Street specialist, nothing they say is going to work.
Right.
And they go, and I go, you're bitter and twisted for some reason. And you're now imposing that on this poor man or woman who's actually gone through hell to get his qualification. So please, can we have a bit of a two-way thing? Just can we think about JJ and what she's put in to how magnificent and incredible she is right now. I go around saying things like that to people because it's like no, really think about the person that you're actually going to invest with, because it makes sense that they are charging whatever it is.
Well, I just look at how many years someone's in therapy and still talking about the same problems, still having the same reactions. I mean, it could be broken down into, if you've been in therapy for a year, we're good. Like you've already paid this much and you have no results, and it's going to be supercharged in a small amount of time. That's going to transform your life, which lets you be able to manifest more. And, again, happiness is important to me. So I'm looking for the people who want to invest because they want to be happy. And if you're happy, happiness is not worth more than a couple $100s, then I'm not the right person for you. It's that easy.
That's right. Well, JJ, what I'm going to ask, maybe you or your darling PA, I'm just going to ask for the kind of top podcasts, and then what we'll do is we'll when we send our newsletter and our various things out, we'll just suggest that people start with those.
Sure.
Because please listen to JJ's podcasts. They're full of the goodies.
Yeah, well, I can curate. You can give me some ideas of what to curate for people. If you just go to my website, there are the two free trainings that I've just mentioned. The 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective is one, and then another one is how emotion creates disease. No, how emotion affects healing and disease. Sorry, it's been a while. How emotions affect healing and disease. Those are both free trainings that are on my website. They're not podcasts, but they're webinar trainings that you can watch again for free. And then, I mean, really so many, 5 ways to allow in more, price to pay for living your purpose. How can I, how to feel better right now. I have actually you want to send them somewhere? There's a page on my site called favorite episodes, top favorite episodes. I believe there's about 40 of them.
Oh, okay. That's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. All kinds of, but if I can always curate a list for people depending on the subject matter that you are looking for.
No, we won't get you to do any more work.
Okay.
JJ, it's as usual, it's been absolutely amazing. And I just feel really honored that you're out there in the world, kind of understanding my language. Actually, that's the thing that I was just going, blimey, I don't have to push. This woman gets it. It's great. So thank you for spending the time with me. And I'm sure that we're going to carry on this dialogue.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I know I couldn't wait to get you on my show and talk about the same thing. So I love having a kindred spirit and soul who understands the truth of how life sort of works. And we're just here to expand and have a good time. And when contrast happens, that's our job to grow. It's our little lesson that we incarnated to learn. And it's not, on one hand, it's don't take it so seriously. On the other hand, be okay with, I love when you said about the client that said, you're not going to break me. I tell all of my people, if you're worried about crying, like if crying is what breaks you, know that your illusion of you being strong is a lie, because we're built to, as you know, through the systems of the body, to express emotion. If you're not expressing it, you're emotionally constipated. So unless you would like to continue being emotionally constipated, learning how to be okay with your feelings is part of the human experience. So pain is normal, suffering is an option, right? So life is going to ebb and flow. Storms will happen. Storms will pass. Being able to access your anger is as important as accessing your joy. If you can't access one or the other, the pendulum won't swing back and forth. So for those of you that are stiff upper lippers, know that there is a lot of strength in
not listening to JJ. It's not me. I don't mind. I'm not. It's like there's enough work out there for both of us and all of us. So,
totally.
If you love JJ, for goodness sake, get a hold of her instantly. JJ, thank you very much indeed. And see you very soon, I hope.
Yes. Thank you, Catherine.
Take care.